And in this speech, Ken Brzezinski is giving an after-dinner talk in fulfillment of Project 5 of the Entertaining Speaker booklet. Since Ken is a combustion scientist, someone who studies how fuels burn, he's making this presentation as if it were to a group of similar scientists after a technical conference banquet dinner. So, relax. Now that you've had a good meal and a few glasses of wine, find out why it's not all rocket science.
This Toastmaster, fellow Toastmasters and guests, I'm sure you've heard the saying, it ain't rocket science. Any of you have heard that before? Oh yeah. Good. Well, today you might find out that even rocket science isn't rocket science. And even becoming a rocket scientist is not rocket science. For example, Diet Coke, Mentos mints. Did you know if you take the green-colored Mentos mint, put it in the Diet Coke, put the top on, and shake it up, you'll get a pressure buildup in here that when you release the cap, this thing will go 30 feet in the sky, like a rocket. Do we know why? No. It's just something that works. It ain't rocket science, you know? It just goes. Now, if you like this sort of thing, you'll get a whole book on it. Soda pop rockets. 20 sensational projects to make from plastic bottles. It ain't rocket science, right? You basically take, in this case, a gigantic 5-gallon jug. You pump air in it with a bicycle pump. You get it pressurized. You flip the exit nozzle, and that thing goes 30, 50 feet in the sky. It's not rocket science. In fact, even kids could do it. See that little kid? Pumping it up, and then on the other pages he runs away so he doesn't get all wet. It's not rocket science, it's just fun. Now, this kid might grow up to be a rocket scientist. Who knows? Maybe that's all it takes, right? I don't think it's rocket science to become a rocket scientist. I know, because I discovered I am one. Yeah. It was a bit of a surprise to myself. This semester I'm teaching mechanics and thermodynamics of propulsion. I'm impressed, huh? This week I'm teaching chemical rocket propellants, combustion, and expansion. And I'm up there and I'm thinking, this is rocket science. How did I get here? Well, it's a bit of a puzzle to me too, because I didn't plan to be a rocket scientist. I sort of ended up there, but I have a suspicion of how it might have started. When I was a kid, I had a friend, Jimmy. Jimmy's a little taller than me. Same age, we were in class together. We would go down to the local park, and we would take CO2 cartridges like these. Have you seen these? Anyone seen these? You make seltzer water out of them. You can make, with the right attachment, you can make whipped cream. Okay. Well, we weren't making whipped cream. I say, Jimmy, let's go down to the park and see if we can shoot one of these off. How are we going to do that, Ken? Jimmy, I know how. We drill out the lead at the end here. We fill this up with gunpowder. Scientists, huh? By the way, if you want to know what gunpowder is, charcoal, sulfur, potassium permanganate, also known as saltpeter. We got it. Fill this thing up with gunpowder. I got a fuse from a cherry bomb, put it in there, and launched this thing in the park. And both of us went, wow, that's great. It ain't rocket science. You just fill this thing up and you shoot it off and you go, whoa, aren't we cool, right? Now, little did I think I would end up teaching that kind of stuff one day. In fact, as much as I enjoyed shooting this thing off and occasionally blowing it up, what I was more interested in was chemistry. Anyone have a chemistry set when they were young? Okay, did you have this kind, the Gilbert? Something like that, right? Now I was almost nerdy, not nerdy enough to read the directions. My idea of chemistry was to take these bottles, mix everything together in the bathroom because of the water, and I knew I could clean up afterwards, and see if things would explode. And they did. It was a mess everywhere, and there was no rocket science in that. In fact, there was no science. It was just a mess. But boy, it was a great experience. Now, did that make me a rocket scientist? I don't know. I do know that when I got to college, I was pre-med. Some of you have heard that. I think that happened because when I was asleep, my parents would come up to me and say, be a doctor, be a doctor, be a doctor. Because I never understood why I was pre-med. Somehow it got in there. I think it was one of those things at night. But one day I realized being a doctor involves blood. But chemistry was clean. Sort of. So I went on to study chemistry, as you've heard me talk about before, and that chemistry led me by one means or another to what I'm doing today. I work at another university doing combustion. Combustion is the chemistry of burning, and it led me into this kind of science. So when I look back on my own career, there was no planning, there was no science to it. I became a rocket scientist sort of by accident. So if I had to conclude something, I would think, shoot off rockets, blow up things, get chemistry sets, make a mess in the bathroom. That's how you become a rocket scientist. That's my conclusion. There's no rocket science to being a rocket scientist until later. There's no rocket science to shooting off Coke bottles. So, have you all heard that every Toastmaster talk should have a message? How many of you have heard that? Okay. Well, here's my message. Hey Ken, Mr. Rocket Scientist, if you're so smart, how come you can't remember to call me? That's my message. Thank you very much.
That was very entertaining.